A few months ago, the Welcoming Congregation group that I was part of, and the Welcoming Congregation, for those of you who are new here, is a program that the Unitarian Universalist Association started a number of years ago to become more intentionally welcoming and embracing people who are in the GLBTQ community, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, or what's the other phrase? Questioning. And we decided this year to really come back to that process again, although this congregation had been the first congregation in South Carolina to be officially a welcoming congregation for Unitarian Universalism. What we decided at that meeting was to have the Mother's Day service today be somewhat more focused. Obviously for all mothers, but particularly for these mothers of courage who are in the GLBTQ community and who are raising children, sometimes in difficult circumstances. We are going to have two mothers speak this morning, and I hope that they will introduce their families when they do come up. The first one will be Hutton over here, and then Pam Melton down there. So let us please enjoy their words, after which I'll have a brief reflection.
See, what happens is you stay home with your kids, and then they follow you around everywhere you go. And I was the stay-at-home parent for 15 years. This is Laura, and this is Dante. We also have a unique family, and our family is an interracial family. So that has its advantages, because when you go to the grocery store and they say you can only select 4 items per person, you send one person in, you send another person in, you go in, and then my partner goes in. It has its advantages. So these are my kids, Dante and Laura, and I want to introduce them to you. You can sit back down. You can sit back down. Unfortunately, when you keep them home, some of them likes to stay with you, like a little kid. So I will start. I was asked to come here this morning to speak about what it is like being a gay mother. I don't know what it's like to be a gay mother. I just happen to be a mother who is also a lesbian. My life also has been full of contrast. The contrast of colors, shapes, rules, and lack of rules have mixed together to form who and what I am as an individual. Children do not recognize you as their parent in the early stages of their development. The words mommy and daddy, I believe, mean only to them who loves me, supports me, plays with me, disappoints me, or hurts me. My children, through experience, have learned I am not the cheerleader in their life. That is Jean's job. A few weeks ago, in their infinite wisdom, the title of stage crew became who I was. I am the one who makes sure hair is in place, shoes are shined, and eagerly push them to the front of the stage. Without me, they said, there is no show. As a mother, my children have spanned across the rainbow, coming in all sizes, shapes, and colors. I have not become a mother in the conventional way, 9 months, hard labor, and a sweet bundle of joy. No, my bundles usually come hardened, broken, destroyed by your traditional one male, one female home. In the 80s, I shared the parenting experience with a mother of 2 young girls. Their mother, a nurse, worked from 6 a.m. until 6:30 in the evening. The children, ages 3 and 5, spent every waking moment with me until ages 11 and 12. Though they are both adults with children of their own, I still have the key to their mother's house. Later in the 80s, a friend of mine had all 7 of her children removed due to continuing neglect. The courts awarded custody of the children the way most people disperse puppies. The one that came to me had been in my care since birth. The courts finally awarded custody of him at age 7. In 2004, Maryland courts placed Dante, with Jean and I, under the kinship care law. Dante, who has donned himself, my favorite cousin, has grown from a scared little boy to a teenager with a mischievous grin. In 1997, I met my life partner and the love of my life. Packed in her suitcases came 2 kids and an ex-husband. Sparks, as I like to call him, always had a plan to make our life interesting. He maintained a battle for continuous modification of visitation up until 2007. He had a habit of showing up unannounced at our apartment, leafing through our mail, and insisting he had a right to be anywhere his children were. I became a stay-at-home parent in 1999. In 2000, we put Sparks on a short leash, stopping him at the end of the driveway. Laura started school, and our lives were quiet for several years. Laura's favorite thing to do on the first day of school was to announce that she had 2 mothers. Our relationship did not factor into the lives of our children at school for several years. Around 5th grade, children started asking Laura if we sexually abused her because we were lesbians. Those were the days when being a gay parent was most difficult, because things that you would never talk about with your child, you're suddenly forced to have a conversation based on the ignorance of others. The Dalai Lama teaches to not let another person's burdens become your own. It is an example that is hard to follow when you watch your children cry. In the Baha'i writings, Abdu'l-Baha says that we must accustom our children to hardships. Combining the 2 principles together, our children bore emotional burdens as well as hardships that parents don't think about. There are strict rules in place to protect them as well as us from the ignorance that is pervasive in our society. In the end, the reward for those hardships is we teach our children to place their feet firmly in this world. We try to show them what is just and fair. I have tried to teach them to be a part of the solution rather than being a part of the problem. If they each follow their path, I see that some of those lessons have settled on their ears. Laura is graduating early, planning to major in criminal justice at the University of South Carolina. In Seneca, she is part of the Firemen's Explorers, is working and being productive in our society. Dante is a part of the football and wrestling team. Like Laura, he is a member of the Firemen's Explorers, participates in They Call Me Mr. program that is in the middle school in Seneca. He will be spending a week this summer at Clemson University. Both Laura and Dante, I'm going to have fun, will be competing in Myrtle Beach for the firemen's competition. We are mothers raising children. We just happen to be lesbians, a part of the greater LGBTQ community. Thank you this morning for giving me the opportunity to speak to you.
Well, hi, everybody. I think everybody knows me. I'm Pam. This is my son, Alex. This is my partner, Christine. We've been together 4 years. Alex is a 9th grader at D.W. Daniel High School, ROTC, AB Honor Roll student, and I'm a very proud mama. Couldn't be more prouder of him. He's been through a lot with mama, through sickness, through a lot of scares, through a cancer scare, through a lot with my ex-partner. We were together 7 years, and but he was always there. He was my baby. He was always there, my little boy. And growing up in a same-sex relationship in South Carolina is really hard. And we went through a lot of struggles, especially when you have medical problems, because they don't want your partner in with you in the same room. They don't want your partner there. And when you have a child, how do you explain to them that your partner can't be with you and you have to be with your partner? And we've been through a lot, but he's come out on top. He's very much in this ROTC thing. I tell you, it's something, but I'm very proud. And I have a relationship now with her. We've been together 4 years, and it's just great. We love each other, and raising kids here, just in a normal circumstance, has got to be enough. And then you have people who talk about you behind your back when you walk into a store, or people who say something about you, and your child has to see that. That's really hard, and you have to explain it to your child. And when he's 3 or 4 years old and he sees it, or he's, I mean, I don't look the same as everybody else. I already know that, but I'm your mama, and if you got any, and we've always been able to talk and communicate, and we've been real good with each other. And I think kids growing up in a same-sex relationship sometimes has an advantage, because they have to, when they're small, they have to look at what advantages they have. They have an open mind more and they get taught, look at people for who they are, not for what somebody else judges them as. And they don't judge as much people. And I just think it's a better place. And it does take a lot. I mean, he's always been right there. He's just the sweetest kid you would ever know. You wouldn't know that today because he didn't want to be here. But he's my baby. And I couldn't be prouder. I mean, he's done me good. And like I said, I'm the proudest parent you could ever have. And we've been through a real lot. But like I say, being in the same-sex relationship, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I really wouldn't. I love who I'm with, and I love this little boy here with all my heart. And yeah, he's a big boy. But like I said, if anything anybody else wants to know about it, you just let me know. But that's all I have to say. But he's my baby.
Thank you both. Thank you. Thanks, Heather, for the welcome announcements. Thank you as she sings, as always, for your beautiful music. And to Monica, thank you. And for the flowers today. I just want to say a few words this morning about courage and being pioneers, because that's really part of what you were talking about in your stories. Your parents first, and it just happens that you're same-sex couples. It just happens. But I want to take a little side trip for a second. Within the Zen Buddhist tradition, there is a process by which you take ordination vows, which I did some years ago. And when you live at a monastery, as I did, there are several things that are torturous. One is getting up at 3:50 in the morning. And the second thing is memorizing, which is actually a good thing. One of the things that we had to memorize at the monastery was a lineage chart, going from the Buddha 2,600 years ago to the present. And it's a long lineage of teachers, one after the other. Now, it starts with the first 6 or 7 Buddhas of supposed history, then the Indian teachers, then Chinese, then Japanese, and now American. All the lineages, historically, for an odd reason, have been men. What a concept. More traditional monasteries would call them a list of patriarchs. In the monastery where I trained, they were ancestors, spiritual ancestors. My own Zen teacher, Jan Chosen Bays, is an American woman, and she and other American Buddhist teachers, not just Zen teachers, found it rather offensive that half of the human species was being left out of lineage charts. It was flawed at best and sexist to boot. So what they decided to do about 15 years ago was to put together, the best they could, a historical list of all the women teachers, starting from the Buddha's time to the present. They started with the Buddha's aunt, whose name was Mahapajapati, and she was a woman of ferocious determination. She came to the Buddha's camp and said, I want to be a monastic. He, not being perfect, and that's true, he wasn't perfect, said, how could this be? You're a woman. His cousin and major disciple insisted that yes, women were equal, and yes, they could awaken, they could become enlightened. The Buddha didn't argue this for too long, and he said, okay, fine. So this woman, who was his aunt, became the first Buddhist woman teacher. What my Zen teacher did and others is that they looked scholarly through all the generations since then and created a lineage chart. Indian, Chinese, Japanese, and now American and European. Those women were teachers, often persecuted for their beliefs. They were forgotten or scorned, or they had to become hermits because they would have been sexually or emotionally abused otherwise. I mentioned that particular lineage of women ancestors or matriarchs as opposed to patriarchs or male ancestors because historically this is the one that's been the most important. What I would suggest to you is that that lineage also applies to women who we know. Women who are brave and determined. Women who were our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers. Women like Christina and Pam. Women like Jean and Jay. Women like so many of you, in fact, all of you. Every single woman I have ever met, in one way or another, has attempted to live this value, whether they had children of their own or not. The one value, their one goal was to have their children have better lives than they did. That their children would have a better life. Every single woman is a woman of courage. Some had children and carried them for 9 months and bore them and then raised them with fierce determination. Others, like Emily Dickinson, for example, never had children, but they were determined to make the world a better place for all children of all generations. And if you read Emily Dickinson's poetry, you will see this come up over and over again. This lineage, this long lineage, which is so much longer than the Buddha's lineage or the lineage of Jesus and the Jewish community and so on, this lineage goes back millions of years. And now it has come to a new generation of brave and pioneering, courageous women. Pam and Christina, who did not have a chance to mention her children, or you and your children. All of you and so many more, millions of more women, are the pioneers and the courageous women of today. Despite the flaws of our society and the tendency to shame anyone who isn't normal, quote unquote, or the fears of people who are terrified of anything different than what they know. Women like the four of you are here in Clemson, they're in Seneca, they're in every town and community, and they're even in North Carolina. They're in China and India and Tibet and Afghanistan and more places than we can imagine. And what they and you are doing now are the teachers bringing the lessons of millennia to the next generation. That your children must and should and will live a better life, a more tolerant life, a more accepting life, a life without the insanity of the labels which you have had to endure. They and you carry the courage of stubborn determination and powerful love. And your pioneering spirit is not alone. Because you're here, you should not only be appreciated but admired for what you have done and what you continue to do, because you are brave, you are courageous, you are pioneers. And you and all the other women that we know and do not know for millennia have held up one particular promise, and that promise is simple. All the children will have a better life. All the children will have a better life, and that is the peace proclamation that Julia Ward Howe was saying and you said today. But you're not alone. Jean and Jay and Christina and Pam. You're joined with people like Martha or Mary or any of you over here. Whether you have children or not is immaterial. What you do is you bring that spiritual DNA that I've talked about so many times into the future. This world will be a more peaceful world for your children because they will be more tolerant, more understanding, more accepting, and their vision will be broader. That is your promise. You are not alone. You're joined with all the women who may not have children, but who speak with one voice about the Mother's Day peace proclamation, that we must somehow find peace in the midst of war. You are not alone. All the women and men in this room and everywhere have generation after generation of mothers in your lineages who tried the best they could, that all the children will have a better life because of me or sometimes in spite of me, but they will have a better life. And you know who they are, some of them. And what I said earlier is that I want us to have a time of quiet now before we end, where you can lift the names of some of those women, especially mothers who bore children, but not necessarily, not only, because our broader perspective now says mothers who raise children adopted, or women who were able to love children, whether they were biological mothers or not. Women who were able to say to themselves and to others and to their children and to their spouses and partners, our children will have a better life. This is my commitment. So what we're going to do now, I put a bit less fluid in the chalice today so it would go out. And I did deliberately. What your mothers and your grandmothers and your great-grandmothers and all of the women going back in time as far as you can imagine and even farther than that, every single one of them, whether they did it well or poorly, passed along a flame, generation to generation, woman to woman, and woman to man, saying, take this flame of love and carry it on. They might have said, I am tired, I can do it no longer. But please carry it on. I bore you for 9 months, or I adopted you because I loved you and I still love you, and I'm tired, and someday I will be gone, but carry it on. So this flame in front of us is out, but the flame of every single woman that you know is carried on, because the children must have a better life. So in this time of quiet, I would invite you to just say the name of a woman in your life who you might have known or not known, who speaks about motherhood, the greatest gift of it. And I will start with several. One is my sister, who died 2 years ago suddenly, Jamie. Another is my foster mother, who died in 2002, Selma. Another is my biological mother, Barbara, who died several years ago. I could do a list that seems endless, but those are the three that come to mind. So now I leave it to you for a few moments of quiet and silence to just raise the voice and name of a woman or women who carried that flame to you and asked you to carry it on to the next generation. May their names not be in vain. May they be part of that long, long lineage of courageous women who were pioneers, who all said, the children will have a better life, and they will sleep at night in peace and in safety. And because none of us is left out of that responsibility, we will now sing together, please standing as you're willing or able, number 409.